level down. Ruby level down. Ruby gun double up and never promotion. I got the touch never playing up gas on the board. Kick back, never board, click gas to the short, click gas to the sport. Ruby wrestles devil, devil in the seven with a Ruby can't afford to move to one hood just yet. Seven more dragon with a fiery sword to the neck.
Welcome to KATS News at 7, your source for anything European literature related. I'm Tess.
And I'm Cameron.
And today we have breaking news into the life of Albert Camus and his first classic novel, The Stranger. Flashback to the year 1937, and Albert Camus and a few friends who were all born and raised in the French colony of Algeria traveled to Paris. Hereafter, Camus becomes anxious, like he usually does while traveling, and he uses his recovery time to develop notes for a book he will write in 1942, called The Stranger. Later that year, back in Algeria, Camus wrote as a court editor for the newspaper Algiers Republicain, reporting on injustices in the courtroom. The experiences in the courtroom would lead Camus to write realistically about the legal system in his first novel. Fast forward 2 years, and Camus was trying desperately to enlist for World War II, but he was turned down due to his medical condition and slipped into a state of depression. But fortunately, he was able to land a job in Paris as an editorial secretary for the newspaper Paris Soir. Being in Paris, in the midst of World War II, allowed Camus to develop a keen sense of what he called the absurd. His rationale of absurdity was that everything just happened and nothing held significance.
While working in Paris, his job was not demanding, and in turn, he had much downtime to finish writing The Stranger, in which he clearly illustrates his belief in the absurd. In addition, The Stranger is set in Algiers, Algeria in the 1940s, which was originally an Arab country that became colonized and inhabited by the French and their Western values. The following picture illustrates France's invasion of Algiers in the 1830s and the native citizens' fear of their Western power and values. This specific setting allowed for the premise and racism towards the Arab community, who were viewed as inferior to the French. This racism, in addition to Camus' belief in the absurd, paved way for the plot of The Stranger, in which a man named Meursault goes through his mundane life unattached and emotionless, but after killing an Arab man, is put on trial and begins to realize that his apathetic, absurd character is at the center of the dispute and not his murderous act.
Wow, it's crazy to think history could connect so much to a book and its storyline, especially Camus' character Meursault. Let's take a closer look at him and his character development by analyzing a few passages. As you can see in this passage, Meursault displays little to no remorse when he smoked and drank coffee in front of his deceased mother. He does not show any emotion at all when talking about his mother post-mortem, further emphasizing his apathetic attitude towards his only family member. In addition, Meursault doesn't grieve over his mother's death like many people normally would. This displays his emotional detachment to the world and the events occur around him, as Meursault believes that these events simply just occur. His complete honesty to the caretaker about his lack of emotion and lack of ability to grieve at the funeral illustrates him as an outsider to society. As Meursault thought that smoking in front of his dead mother was irrelevant, it illustrates furthermore to the audience his emotionless personality.
Now let's head over to Anthony.
Thank you, Cameron. Now, as the story evolves, so does Meursault's character, who eventually experiences thoughtfulness, contemplation, and feelings after he kills a man. This is illustrated by Meursault's thoughts in the following passage.
Until this point in the book, Meursault shows very little emotion in relation to his actions or decisions. Throughout the whole book, he believes events occur randomly and he is a bystander to those events, reacting as is best for him at that moment. He does not include emotion in his decisions, as shown when he does not feel guilt after killing a man, when his mother died, or when he displays apathy towards the question of marrying Marie. But, in this passage, he describes his emotions. Although very complicated, he describes happiness and hatred and wants people to come to his execution so that he feels less alone. These emotions would have never happened earlier in the book. Furthermore, he wishes that there are a lot of people at his execution, and this displays his desire and ability to plan for the future, which is something he would never have even considered earlier in the book.
Meursault's character development is similar to that of Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands is an artificially created being with scissors for hands. Because he is not human, he is detached and viewed as an outcast by the rest of society. Edward is already considered to be an outsider, but similarly, Meursault is considered to be an outsider because he displays a lack of emotion during his mother's funeral. At the end of the movie, Edward goes on an enraged rampage because people view him differently, and he comes to the realization that he'll never be considered normal. When Marceau realizes his death sentence is approaching, he is overwhelmed with emotions. Both characters live life detached, and through their trials and tribulations, they discover that they have the capability to feel. Back to you, Tess and Cameron.
I bet you all are wondering what Camus' writing style is. Well, you're in luck. Let's see what Senna has to say about the following passage from The Stranger.
Pleasure working with you, Tess, so let's analyze the following passage.
Go ahead and take a minute to read it over. First of all, this entire paragraph shows Albert Camus' short and choppy sentence structure. It also clearly shows how Camus integrates dialogue into his paragraphs as shown in sentence 3. In addition, the simplistic language and word choice illustrates an apathetic and indifferent tone that Camus gets from his belief in the absurd. Camus also has an interesting use of grammar mechanics such as semicolons and long dashes.
Similar to Camus' simplistic writing style and lack of imagery in Ben Nicholson's abstract painting from the 1930s titled White Relief. This bland and white painting was created with a minimalistic mindset. Minimalism was a movement in which artists stripped their pieces of emotion in order to create a more direct experience for the viewer. This is similar to how Camus wrote The Stranger. Camus created a character who was completely detached and at times appeared emotionless. White Relief and The Stranger are both very concrete works of art that do not try to have a deeper meaning or impact the audience's emotions. Camus' simplistic style is displayed in the previous passage by how the protagonist directly lists everything he sees, does, and feels. When reading the passage, there is not much more you can take out of it than what is presented, which is similar to how minimalist artists like Nicholson attempted to create their pieces.
To conclude this broadcast, in The Stranger, Camus uses his belief in the absurdity of life and his concrete and simplistic writing style to create a character that's detached and emotionless in the beginning of the story, but transitions into a slightly more emotional person who understands the consequences of his actions.